have to move on and discuss the shake-up from yesterday. Some people thought the president was going to swerve us because it looked like the information had leaked somehow, but it did happen. Malik Dabo is here to help us discuss the issue. He's editor, myjoyonline.com. You're welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
Good to be here. I'm fairly sandwiched by the two of you.
Yeah. No, I would take it easy because Joe usually doesn't, you know.
Yeah, he's not, sometimes he's not that
He's
nice
not friendly. But we'll serve you some breakfast.
And today will be one of those, okay?
Just started.
Yes, actually, we're feeling very hospitable today because we had a surprise visit from our friends at Fiesta Residences. Fiesta Residences is a wonderful hotel, long-stay hotel facility in the heart of Accra Encantaments, just behind Christ the King. And their management came over.
You won't believe it.
It was wonderful, a great surprise to see them. Johan de Villiers is the manager. He came with his colleague, Rachel Bruce, and they brought gifts. They brought food, lots and lots of food for breakfast.
Henceforth, I am an ex-officio member of the AM.
You should be coming here. Yeah. So thank you to Fiesta Residences for the breakfast.
So much.
Amazing,
so
amazing.
It's a great
we'll
place.
serve you some breakfast, yeah?
Sometime soon.
Okay.
But shall we get into this this reshuffle? The president continues to play chess, or perhaps it's drafts, with his appointees.
This is the first shake-up, really, and we've been talking about this since.
Yes.
You were anticipating it,
yes.
or expecting it, or wishing for it.
But he added one.
Yes.
So we now have 111 appointees. So clearly the 110 were not enough.
Including now a minister at the office of the vice president.
That is the one thing that was needed.
What's your understanding of that, Malik?
Well, we spoke to the deputy chief of staff, and I'm talking about Abu Jinapo yesterday. He's one of two deputy chiefs of staff, and yesterday his explanation was that the vice president's office is, for want of a better expression, the fulcrum of the government's activity as far as economics and finance, and of course the vice president is chairing the economic management team and all of that, and that there is, and given the peculiar circumstances under which this government came into office, to use his own words, there's so much work to do at the vice president's office that the vice president needs all the hands that he can get.
So why a minister? What will the minister do that perhaps a presidential staffer can't do, or the vice president himself can't do?
I think the explanation they offer is that given Boniface Sadiq Abubakar's own experiences in the past, you know that he's been at the finance ministry for many, many years as a civil servant before he got into politics. So his experiences in terms of financial management and all of that will be brought to bear in the work of the vice president. And we know that when it comes to managing the economy and finance and budget and all of that, the vice president is key. So that's the explanation they offer. Of course, beyond that explanation, those who look at the politics of it and not the governance of it have, they feel like a certain discomfort because if you know the politics and the history of Boniface Abubakar Sadiq, note that he was member of parliament for Salaga. Note that he was one of the key ministers under the Akufo government.
Works and housing.
Absolutely. Note also that in 2008, after that December 2007 epic Congress, where Nana Addo barely crossed the finishing line to become the flag bearer of the party, Boniface Abubakar Sadiq was one of the people who strongly lobbied for the vice president's presidential nomination. Himself, MND Jawula, Alima Mahama, all of them were lobbying. Boniface lobbied strongly. Then Bawumia came from nowhere. After the candidate's decision to settle on Ali Mama had been unacceptable to the party, and the party had made that categorically clear. So he had to look somewhere else. So he found Bawumia. Now, this is a position that Boniface would have wished for and had actually waited and lobbied and campaigned and worked hard for and didn't get. Someone else got it. Now he's in. Those who watch the politics actually say that it is Boniface's wish that Alan was the candidate. If Alan was the candidate, he would have been the vice presidential candidate. And Alan wasn't the candidate. Alan had been the competitor of Nana Addo for that position. Now, If Bawumia wants to go for the presidency, that means he has to contend with Alan. If Boniface wishes that Alan becomes flag bearer, so he becomes vice presidential candidate, and he's supposed to work with the vice president, there is a coalition.
So this is keep your friends close and your enemies closer type situation.
So questions would be asked.
Yeah.
Was the vice president aware of this? Did he approve of this? Has Boniface stopped hoping that he would pair Alan for the presidency?
Or perhaps is this a way to make him redundant so that he would give up? Because if you go and there's nothing for you to do.
Absolutely.
But I have a question. Why not Minister of State at the presidency? Why have they created this new space at the vice presidency for ministers? Could Boniface not have served whatever purpose they seek for him to serve with the vice president? Could he not have served that purpose as a Minister of State at the presidency?
Maybe I'm thinking the politics of it. The politics of this is essentially this. You already have a minister, you already have 6 ministries. Those 6 ministries, inner city development and all of those ones, what's the name, Dambuchi's ministry, Dr. Akuto say, monitoring and evaluation, all of those are under the presidency. Now you have Roxin Bukari. Roxin Bukari was the Upper East Regional Minister who is now being moved to the office of the President also as Minister. You don't want to add Boniface Sadiq again to the presidency as also Minister of State at the presidency.
Why not?
So why not share them? Why not send one to the Vice President's office?
This has never happened in the history of Ghana.
Absolutely. Yeah, there have been so many firsts.
Yeah,
you have never had 110 ministers.
No.
Now you have 111.
So now the spillover of ministers is falling into the vice presidency as well.
and
will we soon see ministers of state at the first lady's office, second lady's office?
I wish I was Abu Jinapo and I could answer that. But if Abu Jinapo's answer is anything to go by, they think that Boniface's experiences and his background will be very useful at the vice president's office. That's why they did that. Yeah, so that's about
Let's talk about Mustafa Hamid. He was spokesperson for the president, and the question I asked this morning was, would he still remain spokesperson for the president?
Well, absolutely not, because I think the nomenclature they used for that ministry was Minister for Information and Spokesperson for the President.
It wasn't exclusive to him.
No, I think it wasn't.
Because he was spokesperson for
the candidate.
Exactly.
And had been for a long time. Even when he was no candidate, Mustafa Hamid was speaking for him before he became candidate. And all through from 2007 to 2010 to 2014, all through all these stages when he became candidate, Mustafa was spokesperson for him. So it was a certain natural progression for Mustafa to continue to speak for him, but also to speak for government formed by this person whom he had spoken for all these years. So that's why some feel that this is a demotion for Mustafa. Not to disrespect the position that Boniface Sadiq occupied, but if you pull Mustafa from speaking for the president, and if you look at the structure of institutions, people who speak directly to the president or to the chief executive tend to have a certain primus inter pares position in those institutions.
Please explain that.
First among equals.
You're using the...
Well...
I know.
So he bails me. So, and yesterday when we spoke to Mustafa on News 9, myself and Evans, and he strenuously argued that he did not think it was a demotion, and that as an Islamic scholar, because he taught Islamic religious studies at the University of Cape Coast for many years until his appointment last year, he thought that it was an opportunity for him to serve his own people and that there could not have been any honor better than that. And I said to myself, this is vintage Mustafa, clever, intelligent man who is under difficult circumstances giving you the best convincing answer that he can give. But you can't convince anyone that a man who had 3 deputies and now has none, a man who headed a substantive ministry now has a ministry which is
a baby ministry,
which is now perching somewhere. It's actually an orphan ministry.
But let me ask you this: is it possible that in spite of the fact that it may be a demotion, Mustafa is actually happy about this move? Is that possible?
Well, there were suggestions that he was not happy at the information ministry, and his interviews were the basis for those suggestions. Whether that basis was itself grounded in fact, we can't tell. But we know that after his appointment, when he was interviewed, he said that having spoken for the president for a long time as candidate, he would have thought that he would be given a new challenge. And some interpreted that to mean that he was unhappy with the portfolio he had been given. Of course, he dismissed that and said there was no reason for anyone to interpret what he said. What he said was to be taken on his face value, that he's been spokesperson for the president and he would have wanted to do something else. But the president, in his own wisdom, thought that he should continue to speak for him, and he was grateful to the president for that honor.
But now he has a new challenge. Would that not make him happy?
Absolutely. And he said to us that he was happy, he was excited, and he spoke eloquently about that.
Okay.
Of course, that does not preclude those of us who are skeptics and who are asking the questions whether given the standings of both ministries. And of course, yesterday he said that he remains a cabinet member. We don't know about that because we know that there is a limit to which the president, there is a limit to the number that the president can appoint to
Was
cabinet.
Boniface a cabinet member?
We don't know that, but maybe the president has assured him that he
You
will
can
remain
get
a
a
cabinet
get a
member.
call up. You can be invited. But I want us to fast forward and talk about the gender ministry real quick, because Roland Walker is on standby to speak to the woman who is incoming now.
Okay.
The gender ministry is such a huge ministry. Absolutely. It's not easy. This is a fresh member of parliament, if you like. She's a first-time
MP
member
for
of
Agona
parliament.
West.
And with this new portfolio, I mean, what was the thinking that went in there? What do you think?
Well, yesterday we spoke to her on Newsnight again, and she said that all along she had been dealing with the underprivileged people, and in fact she said she had some children that she's taking care of who are actually not her own children, but she just picked them up and she's taking care of them. And yesterday she said when the announcement was made, she hugged one of them and hugged him really tightly. She said she had all along she had been working with women and children, especially underprivileged in underprivileged communities and deprived communities. So she thought that for her again, it was a recognition of what she has been doing.
Okay.
That the president settled.
Malik, I want us to go and listen to her. We'll come back and then also talk about Otiko Afisa-Jaba, who is now headed to Italy, what this whole thing means, especially when there's 2020 coming up. Let's talk about a woman who is headed to Italy. And Malik, some people have said that this was clearly a way to get her out.
I don't know if I agree with them, because I think this is actually a promotion, given what she's going to do then, given what Madame Paulina was doing in that country. Because this is an European country, and it's not just a mini European country, it's one of the countries that Ghana does substantial business with. So I think it's a promotion. Yeah, I had those suggestions that she was going to go out. There are others who also say that she's a little volatile, and that an ambassadorial position may not be the best fit for her. But she's quite experienced in politics. Remember that.
I wonder what makes her volatile in quotes. I mean, she speaks her mind, she says things, she has an opinion, and unlike some others who don't talk, she does.
Yes, but just the ability to talk is not necessarily a strength if you're saying the wrong things, is it? And I was going to ask you what you think about her performance in the role. There have been times when she's been accused of saying the wrong thing, like when she said, "Don't wear short skirts if you don't want to be abused," or whatever it is that she said, you know, and other times when she seems very slow to react to issues of gender, especially when it comes to child abuse and so forth. And of course, the famous Moisha matter that she felt warranted, you know, a response from her ministry. So yes, she clearly can talk. But has she always said and done the right thing? In that way?
So I think those are the questions that people are asking, and you actually left out her disagreements with the party chairman for Northern Region.
Oh yes,
not too long ago. You know, people cite all of that and say that's not in sync with the character of a diplomat. But of course, we have lived with Kojo Yangson's best friend, John Benjamin. So,
yes,
so who gets
and
of course you can say
Yisi Boateng is also a diplomat.
Absolutely, you can say John Benjamin is quite refined.
The bar is achievable,
and even though he can get into all manner of fights, he's not your typical diplomat. So Otiko would do well. So we have to wait and see.
By the way, just a quick one. Do you know what John Benjamin does now?
No.
He teaches at the diplomatic school. He's the head of the diplomatic school in the UK. So clearly the United Kingdom government believe that John Benjamin's style of diplomacy should be rolled out to all other diplomats.
and which is quite surprising because this is a deeply conservative society. And to take such a man who has a different character in terms of diplomacy and what we have known it to be, to rather be placed in that kind of position.
But back to Otiko. And, you know, we're trying to assess her performance, right? You know, how she did in that role. I want us to also think about how we think she will do in Italy, okay? What are the nuances of our relationship with Italy? Recently, the minority spokesperson for foreign affairs, Akufo-Addo, went there to observe what the situation was with the refugees, those who were trying to cross over from North Africa into Europe, and he discovered, to our surprise, that a large number of them were Ghanaians, including a pregnant woman. You know, and this appears to be an area of international relations that we are not hearing enough about. But it looks like there's work to be done there, isn't there?
And you just heard the outgoing ambassador to Italy, Madame Paulina, say there are more than 80,000 Ghanaians in Italy. Yeah. Out of the 80,000, the documented immigrants in that country are 44,000. So that's close to half of the people. That's close to half of the people. The Ghanaians there are illegal immigrants. They are undocumented, which means they largely are illegal. And either they are in transit, trying to cross to some other countries, or they are living there in the hope that they can get documents that will enable them to live as recognized members of that country, and people who can work and can earn a living and not be harassed by the police and all of that. So there are heavy matters in that country. If you have close to 40,000 people in a country who are undocumented, that means they don't enjoy any rights and they are not protected by any of the treaties that Ghana and both Ghana and Italy would have signed, and the bilateral relations that the two countries have. These guys are not protected, and that poses a huge challenge. And I know that Madame Paulina had been visiting some of them, attending to some of them, and trying to help some of them to either acquire the necessary documentation and papers that will enable them to be protected by the laws. Well, it will be hoped that Otiko will continue with those efforts to help them, but it's a huge task.
Any strengths that you think she's bringing to the role?
I think she's also quite a forceful person. If you check the Jacob Echebe Lamte, the late Jacob Echebe Lamte's leadership of the MPP, when they went to the next election in Tamale, apart from herself and I think John Boydu, the rest of them, every single one of them lost their position. She was the only person left standing who retained her position. In fact, even John Boydu contested something else. So amongst all the 10 or 9 executives, she was the only person who retained her position, which is a testimony to her own character in the party. So she's quite a forceful character. So that would help her. You know that Italy is not it's not a conservative. It's not quite a conservative society as you would think. So that would help her. But of course, it means she has to go through all of the rigmarole of training and education and preparation before she can function effectively.
I wish we could have talked about a few more of these appointments. People are already calling the Energy Ministry ASEP Annex. Yes, but sadly, we've probably got to move on to other things, haven't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Malik, for doing this with us. Let's have you a lot more. We will serve you to some good breakfast from Fiesta Residences. But awake purified water will bring us some show business.